Hello friends, and welcome back to another speed build. Today I am building something very different from my usual builds. Today I am building a castle on a hill. I had a few reasons for wanting to build something different, one of which is the terrain tools. They've been in the game for quite some time and I've never really ended up using them. The whole point of this build was to play around and experiment with terrain tools in this game. I wanted the castle to be slightly off center to the left and have somewhat romantic pathway leading up to it. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit inspired by the film Rapunzel, which is honestly one of my favorite Disney films, like, of all time. Mostly I wanted the surrounding area of the castle to feel very dreamy and fairy tale-esque, with pretty flowers everywhere and a cute little path that leads up to the castle. As you can see, I also added a small pond, or a river, that goes around the entirety of the castle. Again, because I feel like I don't really get to use the terrain tools very much, I think it's just easier to build a nice house on a flat ground than it is to build something on a hill, especially because the terrain tools can be a little bit fidgety. I encountered a whole list of bugs and weird glitches while trying to play with the terrain. We all know The Sims is never fully glitch free, there's always something going wrong. And oh my gosh, the camera jumping up and down when I was trying to furnish the castle was actually driving me insane. Here I am trying to place a bed and a painting, and the camera is jumping into the ground or up into the sky. At one point I wasn't even able to zoom in past a certain point, and I was furnishing from like far away. Moral of the story, terrain tools cause camera glitches. Okay, back to the build. For the shell or the exterior of the castle, I looked up some reference photos on Google for inspiration. But looking back at this build, I don't think they were very useful. I just ended up doing my own thing. In the end, I wanted to do something interesting with the shape of this castle. I didn't just want a few boxes stacked on top of each other with windows and a couple of towers. So I tried to add some interesting bump outs here and there, and I made one of the towers taller than the other just to add a little bit of variety. I had finished the exterior shell, I went back to try and smooth out the terrain, as it became weird and really pointy in some areas, so I had to go back and fix that. In the back of the castle, I added a patio of sorts. I imagined it could be used to maybe host parties or balls, or even just to sit and enjoy the sun for a little while. Again, here with the terrain tools around the custom-made stilts, if you can even call them that I built to hold up the patio, the terrain would either curve really weirdly into the ground, or it would form these like weird spikes that were kind of hard to smooth out with the smooth terrain feature. I assumed the terrain was just high up, or rather too high up into the walls of the castle, so it caused this terrain to misbehave, but it was by far up there with some of the more annoying things that I experienced while building this. I just kind of ended up pretending that that glitch doesn't actually exist, and I went on with the build. I also added stairs to the very back of the patio, leading to the river and what I imagined was maybe a fisherman's or caretaker's house of some sort. Most of the early stages of building the castle was just figuring out the terrain and trying to work out where things go. This was my second time using the pond tool actually. I believe the first time I used it was in one of my very first videos, where I built a cabin house of sorts, or like a rental lot, if I remember correctly. I'll leave a link to it down in the description if you'd like to watch that video. The fisherman's house, or the caretaker's house, whatever you want to call it, is placed over the pond, and it has its own little bridge with a stilt foundation to make it look like it's actually in the water. To the right of the house, I also added some small steps using platforms so that Sims could get up and around a lot easier. Now, I only build this for fun. I don't actually think anyone is going to be playing here, but I did imagine the caretaker of the estate would need an easy way to get around. Looking back at the build now, I think I could have definitely gotten away without placing the stairs on the platforms. I'm pretty sure Sims can still walk up them, but then again, Sims aren't as smart, so you never really know. Going back to the terrain tools, I had to smooth out part of the hill for yet another staircase, this time a more proper one. While doing this, I imagined the staircase that leads from the patio to the fisherman's cottage is old, unkept, and kind of maybe forgotten. Maybe it was built to lead somewhere else, potentially before the fisherman's cottage was built. Maybe it was previously a storeroom, or maybe it led to a secret dungeon. I don't know, just an idea. Honestly, looking at those staircases, I can already imagine how long it's going to take for Sims to travel up and down them, probably like half the day. Moving on to the cottage. if you can even call it that. Again, I used the same brown foundation trim with the stilts, and I also went back and added some fencing around the stairs along with some handrails, which would definitely be useful if you had to walk down a flight of stairs like this one. One thing that also annoys me about the terrain tools is how the hills tend to look really brown, like maybe they're made out of soil or mud. And as far as I remember, you can't really place terrain paint on those parts, which is honestly really annoying, because I think if this hill that the castle sits on was green, it would look way better. Like if it didn't have the weird soil parts and it was just fully green, I think it would look a little bit better in my opinion. Finally, moving on to the little fisherman's cottage. Again, the whole inspiration for this was some of the decorations and stuff from Cats and Dogs, and also that one wallpaper from university that I used outside, because I don't know, there's just something about it that screams older house, maybe even cottage, yet there's also something that I find about it that makes it really hard to use in builds. Speaking of Discover University, I used a lot of the university windows. They have this kind of older vibe to them that I quite liked, and I thought they worked very well with what I was going for. I also used some vines or wall decorations from the Vampires pack to make the house look older and, in my opinion, maybe a little bit more cottagey, like it's been there for so long, nature has started claiming it back. I also ended up using a different terrain paint as I thought it worked better and looked a bit more intentional. I ended up replacing all of the terrain paint with one with the smaller looking stones, like maybe gravel almost. The grass colors in some worlds, such as the one here in Brindleton Bay, always tend to look a little bit duller compared to the ones in any of the base game worlds. I get what they were going for, but I think we kind of lack terrain paint for places with this sort of grass color and texture, if that makes sense. I also added a path that leads to the cottage, of course, and along with a willow tree near the second bridge. I placed these sort of pine trees around to make it look a little bit like a forest, but obviously not quiet. I wanted the trees to look like they have been growing there for a very long time, and eventually someone came and built a castle on that hill and had to cut some of them out for practicality. Moving on to the little cottage, clearly I go very back and forth with the way that I do things. I wanted it to be small, cramped, and very old looking. Outside, I placed things such as boxes and barrels and all sorts of different fishing equipment. I wanted it to look old and crowded with items outside and inside. However, on the inside, I placed some old pipes on the wall as decoration and added a couple of necessities such as a bathroom and a little kitchenette. I cluttered the cottage as much as I could. Some of the Get Famous stuff, like the props, came in really handy here. I believe the barrels I used here are in fact from Get Famous. Random objects like that tend to come in really handy sometimes. I also placed the scuba diving shelf from Island Living, as I thought maybe it could pass as some extra fishing equipment to just add some more items around the place. Now, for the roofing of the actual castle, I was a little bit confused as to how to roof this. Part of me wanted it to look like a very traditional castle, and the other part wanted to take inspiration from pictures online that I saw of not exactly modern castles, but just not as traditional looking ones. So you can see that I had to play around with the roofing, and to be completely honest, I wasn't all that satisfied with it in the end. I just kind of gave up and accepted it. Maybe if this castle was bigger, the roofing situation and the overall exterior of the castle could be a little bit more interesting. I also added these little fake balconies onto the front. I've been trying to branch out a little bit here and there and use items that I don't normally use in most of my builds. As you can see, the university windows also make a return here, and in my opinion they look to be a little older with the little stone detail at the top of them. And yes, I am more than aware that there is in fact a kit made exactly for building castles. However, I do not own it, and I honestly don't really think I want to spend money on something that I'll probably end up using once or twice. I also struggled picking a door for this build. At first I went with the Get Famous doors because they looked very fancy, but they didn't exactly fit in with the older university windows that I used. They kind of gave off Judith Ward vibes, whereas I wanted more of a Bella Goth vibe, you know? For the floor plan, I went very simple. I chose a somewhat more closed off floor plan, but still kind of open, with a more open dining area and a sitting area downstairs, a kitchen that is more targeted for a chef or maybe a butler who lives here. Upstairs, there are 2 bedrooms, each quite small with their own bathrooms. Oh, and a small bathroom downstairs too, along with an office. I'm not really sure why you would need an office in a castle, but it is there. I wanted the kitchen area to look kind of old. There are herbs on the walls, along with some cooking tools, and of course more traditional looking counters, and these base game fridges that I never really use because they don't fit in with like most of the builds that I build. I also added some clutter in the corner of the house, such as like these milk jugs and the boxes of fruit. Also, the staircase that you can see here was meant to be a butler or a servant's room or quarters, but I ended up removing it in the end. Sitting room area. I went kind of simple, yet still a little bit extravagant with the furniture choices, as obviously this is a castle. I also used some of the vampires' flooring and wallpapers for this, as I thought they fit in well with the old style I was going for. Honestly, vampires is like one of my favorite packs. I remember when I first got it, I had so much fun playing with it. Like, all of my Sims were vampires, and all of my Sims had the vines growing on their house. I think that it's like still one of my most used items in the game, those vines, that wall decoration. Anyway, back to the build. I changed the swatches of the table and the chairs for more black and red swatches. I wanted it to look a little bit intimidating, almost with the blacks and the reds, but it kind of just ends up looking like Bella Goth had a say in the design choices a little bit. I made the downstairs sitting area quite simple, as I figured it's probably not used very much. Like, it's probably more for show than anything. I kind of imagine that this castle is small and hidden away, maybe because whoever owns it is hiding some sort of secrets and doesn't actually live here. Of course, I also placed a good few of the knight statues around, because you can't have a castle without a knight statue. Upstairs, I placed a black and red bed in the bedroom, along with black furniture and some black curtains. I added some paintings onto the walls too, and I did cut out the bathrooms from this speed build because it was really long, and there just isn't really anything special about a bathroom. The other bedroom I made with a more plain and simple black and white color scheme. I used the same bed but in a different swatch, and another vampire's wallpaper of course, but a darker one this time. And as you can see, we have come to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you got this far into the video. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye!